Alright, so I wanted to watch this video called Why Modern America Creates Fragile Children. This video is kind of popular, it's got almost 900,000 views, and it's a great hypothesis because I honestly noticed that there are a lot of, soft people out there, a lot of fragile people, and not just in the sense of like, oh, you say something mean to me and I'll get upset, but it's the sort of thing where it's like, I'll tell a joke to my friend while we're online getting Chick-fil-A, and you'll be in the back of the line and you'll hear the joke and approach me after I get my meal and tell me that you didn't like the joke that I told to my friend. It's like, bro, what? Like, that's how soft some of these people are. So, yeah, I want to know the why, though, because this video hopefully answers the why, and I don't know if we're gonna get some science, maybe some sociology, I don't know, but let's get into it. Before we do, please be sure to leave a like, and let's get into it.
Every generation loves to complain about the generation coming along, but at the same time, there's a very sharp change with kids who were born in 1995 and afterwards, surprisingly sharp. Beginning with kids born in 1995, they spend a lot less time going out with friends, they don't get a driver's license as often, they don't drink as much, they don't go out on dates, they don't work for money as much. What are they doing? They're spending a lot more time sitting on their beds with their devices, interacting that way.
It's true. It's so true. I see a lot of these types of people on the internet. And that's the thing with doing YouTube is if you do YouTube especially, you have to basically go out of your way to make sure that you're not living a sedentary lifestyle. You have to go out of your way to make sure you're getting sunlight and, going outdoors, interacting with people. I know this sounds so basic, but I mean, the reason this video is being made is because for some people it really isn't that basic. Honestly, if you're outside for a decent amount of time and you walk up to somebody, you'll be able to tell fairly quickly if they're like, socially adjusted or not. Sometimes it's a dead giveaway. There is a certain phenotype to an individual who really doesn't look like they're gonna come out of their shell very often. I mean, look at any of the people that I've used in my TikTok cringe thumbnails. These people need help. They're sick.
These are the first kids who got social media when they were 13, roughly. They were subjected to much more anti-bullying content in their schools, much more adult supervision. They were raised in the years after 9/11. They were given much less recess and free play with No Child Left Behind. There was much more testing pushed down into earlier grades. So in a lot of ways, Gen Z has been denied the independence, the independent play that previous generations got.
I'm never giving my 13-year-old a cell phone. I feel like everybody in Gen Z who has had a cell phone at a young age can almost sort of attest to the negative sides or like the downsides of having that cell phone at a young age. When I have a kid, my kid's gonna get maybe an iPad when he's 6 or 7. The only screen that my child's gonna be able to access when he's young is a TV where we're gonna have maybe Thomas the Tank Engine or, I don't know, maybe one of my favorite childhood shows on the screen. But a cell phone is out of the question until, I'd say, high school, right? Maybe freshman year of high school, he gets a cell phone. And I'm talking like smartphone. He can have like a little flip phone or something and maybe get bullied for it in middle school. But no, definitely not a cell phone. Because especially like this generation, bro, I don't know about you guys, but I saw some stuff I was not supposed to see at a young age. You click one wrong link and you're on a side of the internet that you should never be on. That's a scary thought. You can type in 7 letters, then put .com after it, and you're on some godforsaken website with like the worst content imaginable on it. It really has infected this generation,
Gen Z has been raised with what's called moral dependency. There's always been an adult there for them to go to, and so we don't know if this is for sure the reason, but they seem to have more difficulty working out problems on their own. When we protect children from unpleasantness, from conflicts, from insults, from teasing, from exclusion, we are setting them up to be weak, to be more easily damaged, to be more easily discouraged. In the 1990s, as the crime rate was plummeting, as American life was getting safer and safer, Americans freaked out and thought that if they take their eyes off their children, the children will be abducted. The fear was stoked by cable TV in the 1980s. There were a few high-profile abductions.
Last year, 50,000 children disappeared, many of them from nice, safe neighborhoods.
It's okay. Come on, help me.
Talk to you.
Yeah, a lot of people back in the 90s were, in fact, tapped into the EDP method. Not the one where you use Instagram to groom minors, but the one where you kind of pull up in the white van and say, hey, ya kids, I've got a lollipop, and, they loved the lollipops back then, so they hop in the car without question. While it is a problem, hysteria around this sort of stuff can just make you a paranoid person and you won't do anything. Think about, like, school, too. Like, oh, every time you hear about a school shooting, everybody is, like, kind of on the edge of their seat about, like, oh, is public school school safe in general? Should my kid even go to school? When in reality, it's like, while these things do exist and they are horrible, you can't totally allow them to take over your mindset when it comes to your day-to-day decisions. It's a dangerous thing.
Your children about not talking to strangers, and do it today.
But it's not until the 1990s that we really start locking kids up and saying you cannot be outside until you're 14 or 15. Lenore Skenazy, who wrote the book Free Range Kids, she became famous as America's worst mom because in 2009, she let her 9-year-old son ride the New York City subway. Not only did he survive, he was thrilled. He felt he'd learned something. He felt he could go out into the world. We took this essential period of childhood from about 8 to 12, when kids throughout history have practiced independence, have gotten into adventures, have made rafts and floated down the Mississippi River. We took that period and said, you don't get to practice independence until it's too late, until that period is over. Now, a couple years before you go to college, now you can go outside. Oh, okay, go off to college. And a lot of them are not ready. They're just not used to being independent. When they get to college, they need more help. They're asking adults for more help. Protect me from this. Punish him for saying that. Protect me from that book. Students are thinking in terms of safety and danger. Students say, by their own admission, they are more fragile. They use a language of fragility, weakness, trauma, triggering. They see triggers all over the world. What are triggers? Triggers are cases where you take a part of your nervous system and you say, if someone says that word, they can control my nervous system and make me afraid and anxious.
That's honestly a great way of putting it, and I feel like when you actually explain what a trigger is, it just is kind of really affirming that if you just use a certain word or a certain phrase in the presence of somebody else, you can literally control their mind. It's like an allergy. You know how you can't eat certain foods, you can't eat peanut butter, you can't eat shellfish because it will trigger a physical response. Triggers are essentially just allergies to words, you know? Like, there are certain conversations that people will hold, and just another group of people will say, oh, you can't have that conversation, it's triggering, it's whatever, harmful or traumatic or something. When you really think about it, all you're doing is being allergic to ideas, you're allergic to words. In some sense, you're allergic to the world. Now, obviously, it's one thing if you're like, a war veteran who watched your friend Bobby get sniped in the head as you were having a coffee with him, you were like ambushed by the terrorists or something. And every time you hear the word Bobby, it triggers the fact that you were eating coffee and you saw your friend get literally Call of Duty trick-shotted in broad daylight. Yeah, okay, for you, I get it, okay? You watched your friend get assassinated. But some of these people, I'll literally make a joke and my friend will laugh and the joke will include the word, like, midget or retarded or something. And someone will be like, oh, dude, that's a trigger. It's like, dude, stop, okay? Stop being allergic to words. It's like embarrassing, it's frustrating. You're making the entire world just lame, okay? So, like, stop trying to bubble wrap everything. Stop trying to make everything so soft and cushiony. It's just, it's all just gross.
That's a terrible idea. We should not be teaching our kids to see the world as being full of triggers. We should teach them to live in a world that is physically quite safe, but full of offensive statements and ideas, especially on the internet. The bottom line is that if we want to raise a generation of kids who can deal with diversity of all kinds, who can go out into a world that's physically actually quite safe, but yet full of offensive content, we need to get our educational practices in line with some very basic, important psychological principles. They are, we are all prone to motivated reasoning and the confirmation bias, and we're all prone to tribalism and black and white thinking. We need to be educating kids so that they do less of this stuff.
This is so true. And sort of just to jump off that point, I think political extremism or ideological extremism or polarization is really bad right now. On both sides, absolutely. You always have to just consume ideas critically, consume content critically, or at least, if not even critically, but just be careful, okay? That's all I'm gonna say, because people just get thrown into echo chambers where, people are saying the same thing 20,000 times, and it basically, that sort of thing, where you're in that echo chamber, that's what creates the, the ideological allergy. When all you hear your life is one thing, the moment you hear something else that disagrees with that, you're gonna like throw up in your brain. You're gonna just freak out, have a, seizure or something. That's essentially the point. Like, if you only eat one food your entire life, if you have another food when you're 30, your body might respond weirdly to it. You might have diarrhea or something. It's sort of the same thing, Just be careful.
Always trust your feelings. It may sound wise, it may sound romantic, but wise people around the world have noticed that we don't react to the world as it actually is. We react to the constructions, the perceptions. Epictetus said, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our interpretations of things. All of us have had experiences of these. One thing I like to think about is Homer Simpson saying,
"Shut up, brain, or I'll stab you with a Q-tip."
Our brains do this. Our brains go on, and we're like, stop it, stop it, stop it. What we've begun seeing on campus is that students are encouraged to follow their feelings. If they feel offended by something, then they have been attacked. They're supposed to not question those feelings. But part of wisdom is the ability to say, now wait a second, are there other ways to look at this? These are crucial skills for critical thinking. These are crucial skills for mental health. And we need to be teaching young people at all stages to question their first interpretations, look for evidence, and improve the way they interpret the world. CBT is just a way of teaching people skills to do exactly that, to question their feelings, to look for evidence. So in CBT, you learn the names of these distortions, about 15 or so distortions. You can guess what they mean. Catastrophizing, black and white thinking, labeling, mind reading. Aaron Beck, a psychiatrist, and
that's actually a good one. Catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is sort of what I was saying, which was like, catastrophizing is basically when something happens, which may be benign, may be kind of a big deal, but your brain turns it into this thing that is a catastrophe. It's like a disaster. It's the worst thing ever. Like your crush rejects you. Oh my God, I'm gonna be absolutely womanless for the rest of my life. I'm never gonna have a girlfriend. I'm a pathetic loser. I can't have anything ever. You know, I'm disgusting, whatever. That's basically what that is. That's catastrophizing, where you basically, you know, one small thing happens, or maybe it's even a sizable thing, but you make it the worst thing ever. That's sort of what I was saying earlier about the schizophrenia of like, oh, something bad happens, but now it becomes in the back of your mind for the rest of your life. You can't have that. You know, just be chill, come down to earth. It is what it is mentality will take you a long way.
1960s noticed that depressed and anxious people have a way of constructing these beliefs that I'm bad, the future is bad, my future, the world is a bad place, and they're mutually reinforcing. And this is the way the world feels to them. And if you can improve their thinking and break up those beliefs, they're released from the depression. Cognitive behavioral therapy is not more effective than several other treatments. Most treatments are about equally effective, but it's so easy to learn. Other techniques like meditation work, but they're harder. Most people drop off. So CBT is easy, really well tested, has a huge impact on a variety of mental illnesses, especially those related to depression and anxiety. We think every college student, and heck, every high school student, should be taught these basic skills, given how high the rates of anxiety and depression are today.
That's so true. One thing that I think is really bad is we overprescribe antidepressants to teenagers. It is so horrible. Like, you're basically giving these teenagers drugs and saying, oh yeah, what you're going through, this is gonna help. There's an imbalance in your brain. There's a chemical imbalance. Where it's like, most of these people, they haven't been tested, right? They don't get blood drawn and they actually measure the deciliters of these different hormones and they determine, oh, you have a chemical imbalance. If you just say that you're sad a lot, they'll say, oh, you have a chemical imbalance. That's the truth. But a lot of the time, if you make drastic changes in your lifestyle and improvements, you can do a lot more than I think an antidepressant can. And I guess, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy could be a good start for some people. I think the therapy part may discourage some people because people think therapy and they think, oh, therapy, you know, it's got sort of a, I guess, a negative stigma to it. But all it is, it's a remedy to a problem that you have. So why not engage with it? You have these problems.
Life is a battle between good people and evil people. If you think about it for a moment, who are we? What is our species? We evolved in small-scale societies that were locked in struggle with other small-scale societies. Human nature is really, really finely tailored for intergroup conflict, for tribal warfare. This is the way our ancestors lived for a long time. Now that we've transcended it, we're so desperate for it, we've invented team sports, fraternities. We love these sorts of competitions. Our brains are made for it. Now, it can be fun, or it can get dark, and it can lead to racism, all kinds of forms of bigotry. But on some college campuses and in some high schools, we see forms of education, forms of training that teach students to make more and more distinctions, to see more and more binary dimensions between people, where the people who are high are bad, the people who are low are good. When we talk about identity politics, which is a controversial topic, we start by saying, of course you need identity politics. Identity politics is not a bad thing automatically. Politics can be based on any distinction. It can be based on any group interest. So for gay students or black students or women to organize, that's identity politics. That's perfectly legitimate. The question is, how are they organizing? What's the overarching framework? And we've seen two versions of it in American history. You can do it the way most of the civil rights leaders did it, Martin Luther King in particular, where you draw a larger circle around the group, you emphasize what we have in common, and then you say, some of our brothers and sisters are being denied equal access, equal opportunity, or equal dignity. That works. That has worked historically in much tougher times and zones, and that works and will work on college campuses.
But people don't want to do that nowadays, and that's the truth. People would rather shout down the people that disagree with them. They'd rather get mad at this invisible idea of an enemy, right? They'd rather just scream into the void and yell and tweet at people and just get angry than actually unite with a common goal in mind. I feel like I've seen this, and there's probably more of it now than there was even 10 or 20 years ago. And I think it's definitely not helping anybody. It's just making this division, this sort of, divide that there is between people more and more pronounced. And it's a problem, I think this guy's nailing it.
The other way you do it, which is growing on college campuses, is common enemy identity politics. It's based on the Bedouin notion, me against my brother, me and my brother against our cousin, me, my brother and cousin against the stranger. It's a very general principle of social psychology. If you try to unite people, let's all unite against them. They're the bad people. They're the cause of the problems. Let's all stick together. That's a really dangerous thing to do in a multi-ethnic society, especially in a university where we're actually all trying to work together to solve the problem. If we're creating multi-ethnic environments on campuses, and in most of our organizations we're struggling to increase diversity, what you should obviously be doing is turning down the tribal sentiments, is emphasizing what we have in common. Identity politics done with a common humanity frame is a good thing and is likely to work. Identity politics done by uniting everybody against the people with power and privilege, one race versus another race, one gender versus another gender, this is madness. This is a really bad idea if you're trying to emphasize and increase diversity and inclusion. We call that common enemy identity politics. The more we encourage people to see the people around them as good versus evil, the harder it's going to be to create an inclusive, diverse environment.
Thank you. That's a great video. I think this guy was cooking 100%, great points that he was made. And I think there definitely is a lot of this in terms of cancel culture and, all this other stuff. I think there's a lot of overlap. I think what he explained in the beginning about how in your younger years, you're sort of cushioned and you're sensitive, at least nowadays, was absolutely correct. I think this guy hit the nail on the head on basically almost everything. This was a great video. Gonna slap a like on there for this guy. Great video. Yeah, let me know what you guys thought of it down in the comments below. Check out the video for yourself if you'd like. And with that all being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.